the direct action flaneurs. Hello, welcome back to Manhattan Neighborhood Network. We have the 15 hours of live May Day coverage. You've seen many different panels that happened today. We actually have we have one coming up, the direct action flaneurs. But first we have the march. That's the Guitar Army is marching right now from Herald Square to Union Square. So we'd like to show you some of that footage. It's being brought to us from Ustream through Timcast. Control room, would you show us the video, please?
So for those just tuning in, the march has made it to Union Square, where a large event is being staged right now. I'm going to cut into the shade right over here. Staging setup for the labor movement. So we've got NYPD helicopters just straight ahead of us, above us, I'm sorry. So it's 3:05. We've arrived here at Union Square. Got some cloud cover right now. We've got anarchist literature, the Occupy Library.
Hello, this is really an amazing day and it's just getting better, and we're all here for the May Day, and we are tune in with us right now for the next hour. We are the direct action flaneurs Sferi TV. Well, you maybe ask yourself what Sferi means. Well, my co-host Robin Neuwerf, I'm Andrea Hanke, will literally can tell you a little what Sferi maybe means.
So Sferi is what the Swiss call a afternoon break or rest period. And what the Swiss do during Sferi is they talk with coworkers, they have water or coffee, it's a bathroom break in the afternoon, and it's a chance for recuperation and relaxation. And it normally happens at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and goes on for about 15 minutes. And we are doing an extended Sferi today of about an hour, as Andrea said, in honor of May Day, and with the goal of being in search of a worker's paradise.
Okay, well, I want the worker's paradise right now. Let's move over here. Let's just move over here. And let's get that paradise. This is actually not that easy. But it's good. I forgot the napkins. But, you know what? This is actually what's doing this and squeezing. This is actually hard work. This feels exhausting. So I actually looked in the dictionary what is one word for work. And it says exertion or effort directed to produce or accomplish something. Labor. Well, you know what? I have today fabulous guests, wonderful guests. All of them have maybe, probably, a very different view what work means for them and different perspective. We have guests from performance artists to street vendors to organizers of labor organizations. So, you know, with that saying, this is, as you find out before already, right? This is not kind of the normal maybe talk show. No, we give the permission to the guests that they actually suddenly can allow themselves to become the host during this hour. They allowed suddenly, if they don't want to really listen anymore and it feels exhausting and they get tired, they can do whatever feels good for them. Just maybe what means for them to relax. Maybe they think work is relaxation and they need to do something in that turn. So once in a while, when we are in this circle, they maybe just will step out of the circle and do anything else over here, or anything just flaneuring around. And just taking the time and say hi to our lovely many people. We met so many people in 5 minutes that I cannot tell the name, but there's this huge crew helping to make this happening. But now, I think my talking, I talk my 3 minutes if you think you have that many people. So you probably don't hear me much talking anymore because, you know what, I start to feel a little exhausted on it. And I want to hear all these other voices. So I'm actually asking everybody of our guests, just let's try to make our talking circle here.
So bring your chairs up and let's get to work. Come on in, set up your chairs in the circle sort of underneath the microphone here, and we'll get started.
Oh, don't forget to take your chair. Nobody gets you a chair, Rob.
Nobody gets me a chair. It's work here. Great. So now we're all here. We seem to be situated. Andrea, did you want to get...
And my lovely guest isn't here yet. But,
okay,
you know, because I told her, I SMS'd my lovely friend here and Rico, right? I actually SMS'd her friend that she doesn't need to be stressed out. The trains are really a little going all over the place. So she will come just a little later. So you maybe I'll start.
So I wanted to start and ask James something, and you can introduce yourself after I ask you this. But when we spoke yesterday, James, you mentioned that you're a veteran of the armed forces.
Yes.
And to me, hearing that someone's a veteran, it sounds like hard work, dangerous work.
Yes.
And you're doing something different now, which sort of is lighter work. And so what I wanted to ask you is what's the difference in your relationship to work between what you were doing in the armed forces and what you're doing now?
Okay. My name is James Williams. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I served 4 years. And when I came home, what happened was I worked for several small companies, and I also worked for Madison Square Garden. But I decided I wanted to have my own business. So I became a street vendor. And as a street vendor, I've been a street vendor for 9 years now. Mm-hmm. And I've been with the Street Vendor Project, who helps organize street vendors for most of those 9 years. Street Vendor Project just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. So now, as I work as a street vendor, although it's nice, it's my business, but it is hard work.
Really?
To be on the street, especially in the winter. You wouldn't believe. But in the wintertime, I sell hats, gloves, scarves, and in the summer, I sell women's jewelry. The reason I sell mostly women's stuff because, look, women spend more money. So that's how I make a living.
Well, interesting that you have this conclusion. How are we spending money, huh? But, you know, something occurred to me, and I actually go here to Enrico. When you say hard work, I saw, actually, I didn't see it live, but it's on YouTube. I saw a performance he did in 2009 at the Movement Church and Church, right? And the beginning of the performance, I don't know if it was exactly the beginning, but he and another performer, they had tea in front and took the tea, and for 2 minutes they just were sipping tea. Just for 2 minutes in this performance, just sipping tea. and then they put the tea down, and then they start to do their moves. So my question is, so which one of these both was harder work? Since he talks about hard work or not hard, or what it is for you? I put you right there in the spot.
I know, it's fun.
If you don't want to answer, you say it's free. You can
About the specific piece.
Well, I
that
just
was
thought
working
in general, I just was like, wow, which one is more exhausting to do for two men stand there drinking very calmly your tea or do like physical movement afterwards? Which one is more exerting?
You know, I think it took it depends. I mean, when I was drinking the tea, that is a task that we set up in an improvisatory way to talk about, to just sort of consider the architecture and the audience in the space. So I guess mentally it was a little bit more exhausting because we would specifically scan the audience and try to see what sort of energy we were getting back from each individual member. And that was sort of looking at that relationship and then switching back into a more internal exploratory form of performance. So, I mean, we both work. It's all work.
Okay, well, one distinction he makes, I hear distinction here. Mentally, it was more exhausting. Maybe, Rob, you have one in here. Maybe you can see he's more on the mental side.
Well, or more on the physical side.
Yes.
I mean, I would, I was thinking about tea and serving tea as sort of housework traditionally. And sharing with someone. And I wanted to ask Linda, Linda Olikan is here, and she's an organizer, a labor organizer. Now, you organize domestic workers, yes?
Correct, yes.
And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the fight is right now that you're organizing.
Well, yeah, I would also like to comment, on the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, work could be measured in terms of how much we get to meet our basic needs. So, it could be physical or mental, but I think the bottom line is how much do workers get in return so that the worker can, provide for the basic need. For example, housing, transportation, food, education, etc. So, in general, we look at physical labor as more exhausting, and I would agree because my sector does that. We say we do the work that makes all other work possible.
Sure.
We're babysitters, we're housekeepers, we're caregivers. So we take care of the very important things in society, children, elderly, and homes. But for the longest time, we're not recognized. We're even disrespected. And there's so many factors why. So, right? Yeah. So I think we should look at the systems and culture in different societies, that impact labor or how people would value each one's labor.
Okay, I really love your T-shirt. So can you one stand up for us so we can really see? Because I asked her actually maybe to bring some T-shirts. So imagine we would wear this in solitary with you. What it says exactly on it?
So it says rights, dignity, and justice.
Okay, and then what is here? There says something.
So this is my community, and the vertical lines would represent the sun or hope. And those words capture what we work for. We work for rights, for domestic workers, and for dignity, so that co-workers and society in general would find out how valuable the work inside the home is, and would respect the women and the workers that do domestic work.
Sure.
And justice. Justice is very broad, and I think each of us could connect to the word, right? Yeah.
Actually, I was working with some domestic workers with Domestic Workers United.
Oh, I'm sure.
And they had the rally in Albany a couple of years ago, and I attended that.
Thank you.
I met a lot of domestic workers.
Thank you.
Just because I'm a street vendor And
Yeah.
I see what, you know, the domestic workers go through. So
With
I
saying that,
respect you.
Willis, I'm coming actually. Hi, Marisa. I'm happy you came. And we told you not to stress out. We told also our lovely audience that they should wait, and when she comes in, then that's fine, and you should not be stressed out with the trains. So, saying what she was saying, you know, you do this, not you alone, with 3 others. Curators, you do this festival, right? And it's called Push It Real Good. So, like, just I was like, push it real good. I was like, okay,
Wasn't
again,
that a song?
yeah. So, and that was a song. Yeah, you know what that song meant, right? But I think you guys meant it also in a very different way, right? But with what you heard so far when you came in and with her and your own idea, push it really good, what that would mean in your own field, like, because it sounds like exhausting somehow. It sounds really like I have to go more behind my back and really do something here now.
Right, yeah. I mean, we did take that from a song, and we meant it to try to push past the boundary of what we knew we could do with ourselves, with the artwork that we do, and how we do it as well. Because the festival is dance and performance-based, it's about the body and the labor of the body and the limits of the body. So through the work that we're doing, we're trying to push past what we know to be the limits to find something else, which will probably be exhausting, but worth it to us.
And that was interesting to me, and everybody speak too. You can take the lead of the host too. Don't forget that you can break the rules. Just to remind you. She never showed a sheet how she can break the rules, Rob.
Okay,
you
I'll
won't
pass
give
her a
one.
sheet.
But the body, you said labor of the body, right? That's what the word she said. I was like, And you have another way of how the body and all that, but also that it needs to match certain needs, as I hear it, like needs to meet, I guess, can feed your children, get certain things, right? So this kind of very different looking at it, but actually they're very close as well, finding each other's way.
It's real for dancers too. It's a completely different context, but dancers are like the labor of art.
Right.
And they're largely uninsured.
Yes.
And commit themselves completely to something that they can be injured doing, or they might not know the outcome completely. And they service another artist a lot of the time. So.
Yeah, somebody is just over the head. Can you do that turn one more time? This is really not what I'm like now. I remember one teacher had once too when you practice. Put your shoulders down. And she screamed, like sometimes like 10 times or more in a class. Push your shoulders down, push your shoulders. You're pushing it down, you're pushing it down. She's like, how long are you abusing me here? You push it down and you're pushing it down. So that kind of.
Probably a experience your workers have had.
Yes, there's a lot of experiences along that line, but I would like to react to you. I view your work as cultural work, like, you use the body to teach, right? To express your ideas and maybe to influence people, and that's very important to me.
And there's something else that you said, excuse me, you mentioned health insurance.
We don't have it.
We don't have it, right?
That's right.
Domestic workers,
Right, yeah. We do not
street
have it.
vendors, some artists have no health coverage in the city and state. And that makes it very difficult. So you have to work harder to make more money to be able to take care of your health and your children, your family. It's very costly.
Now, John, I wanted to ask you about this. Now, when we talked before, I mentioned to you that you're a graphic designer and you're a very hard worker, and you said your work is in some sense your life, or your life is your work, but you also have people who work for you.
Right.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but do they get health insurance?
No.
No. Do you get health insurance?
No, I do not.
You don't.
Thank
So
you so
tell me
much.
about that. I mean, that's you're working so hard, and you don't have these basic necessities, even as a business owner.
Yeah, well, I have to say that kind of where I arrived at within that situation wasn't really planned for. So I kind of come from a world of freelancers who normally don't have health insurance unless you can afford it. But then when my workload started getting bigger, I had to hire other freelancers to help me do my jobs. So at this point, we're not really quite at a size where I can offer everybody benefits, including myself, but I hope we can get to that point.
So grow the business to the point where you can do that.
Somehow.
Yeah. And provide for yourself. Go ahead.
Well, I think this economy does not allow most workers and small employers like you to provide health insurance. But there are other countries, right, like Canada, who has, that has, a very good health insurance for all. And it's just sad that, this country just dropped that, right? We had the chance to talk about it, to dream about it, but we did not get it, right? So that's really
Dream about it. I'm sorry. Just things come popping my thing when things come, because Mariette Pavik actually, when she sent the email that she would love to participate, and she said it sounds fun, how we wrote about it, and then she has below on her all of her emails, and I'm reading it. Oh, what land is the land of dreams? What are its mountains? And what are its streams? And it's from William Blake, right? And she used this word dream, right, and all that. So I just was wondering, in all this conversation, what you hear, right, how maybe that thing, can you see any relationship to the idea of sensing of work?
Well, I do. I think it's a great question, because dreaming is the work the subconscious does. It's the work of the mind when the body is at rest. And one of the things that when we talk about labor unions or organizing or the state of the worker is that there's an imbalance in general. So to work is not bad, but to not have enough time to be in an alternate space of dreaming is the other. That's so, so important to the state of health, to the state of security, to the state of being. So for me, the dreaming is that work of the mind that occurs, luckily, when we are asleep, and it gives us inspiration. So I don't know if that answers the question fully, or if anyone.
Can we dream while we're awake?
You can. What's also very interesting in terms of dreaming and dream culture is that many old cultures use dreaming as a way to not only use their intuition for a problem, but they also use dreaming as a way to imagine what the future would be. And we've kind of got to that place where we think that in our analytical culture, that's so opposite of how we function now. But it is really how we function, And it gets co-opted a lot, too. It gets co-opted by corporations. People want to trademark, dream your dream this way or dream it that way. And so, for me, in all the different work that I do, whether it's connecting people or making art or just trying to survive as a freelancer, and it has a lot to do with saying, yes, we need a space to imagine our future.
Right.
I think it's another important thing to note that there's this turning point on the line of productivity, and whether or not the time you spend working is productive for either yourself or for other people, or is dreaming productive, for example.
Well, it's funny because Carl Jung had done a huge dream research before World War II. And in it, he interviewed people, and he found that a lot of them saw things like pools of blood. They saw things coming. They didn't know what they were, but there was an increase in the disturbance of the sleep patterns and the symbols and the things people were collectively dreaming. So that's, one really kind of whoa moment. But then, because we are experiencing a period now where there are tides of people globally saying, we want a different dream. you know, another world is possible is about...
That's a dream.
It's a dream.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Martin Luther King, I have a dream. You know, there is probably nobody in the world who has ever heard English who hasn't heard those words. You know, those are powerful words.
And there's probably no one in the world who doesn't have a dream, whether they speak English or not.
Well, yeah, and I was just, you know, relating it to the actual I have a dream, but you're absolutely right. Dreaming it's one of those basic aspects of ourselves that we don't even consider when we're considering food, shelter, water, clothing.
Yeah.
But
Chris?
we have to. Yeah.
Chris?
And
Yeah.
William Blake was a great dreamer, by the way.
Chris?
I wanted to bring Chris in right now because there was this interesting thing about dreaming and production. And, you know, Chris has a kind of job.
Go.
Yeah, go for it. Chris has a job that I always dreamed about when I was a kid. And when we were talking before this panel, you know, here in New York, we sort of, people get measured by what they produce, by what they do in some sense. And you go to a party and people say, what do you do?
First thing.
First thing. And Chris was telling me he's from originally from the sunny climes of California, and that when he goes home, that's not the question that people generally ask. So talk about that a little bit, Chris.
Yeah, well, I think what you were saying as well, I think that our society, I feel, defines us too much by our work and not as much by our dreams and what we do when we're not working. And especially here in New York, that seems to be more than anywhere else. Well, in my work, my own personal experience was I worked for many years in an office, and I don't want to paint office work with a broad brush by any means. My own personal experience in my specific job was that it was fairly repetitive. And so to me, one concept of what work was going to work and doing something I didn't really want to do. It wasn't so much being there, that was just a little boring, my experience, but the work was like, oh gosh, I gotta go there again and go there. And then what happened was the office I worked at shut down from the economy, and I decided, why don't I do what I had always done as a hobby, which I didn't consider work, which was magic and juggling and all of this sort of thing. And so now I've been doing that ever since. And so to me, it's not work.
But it is work.
It is work. I have to do a lot of physical labor to lug all of my props to gigs, upstairs, downstairs, all of this, keep an audience entertained. That is work, but it's fun. Yeah, I could, you know, just...
You can talk while you juggle?
Talk while I juggle. I don't know. I can. Do you want to see some magic, actually? That's what I do as well. Oh, the other thing is we were talking about health insurance, and obviously in what I do now, I don't have any health insurance, and I do some dangerous things. I breathe fire, you know.
Wow, you need health
work
insurance.
With fire. I need health insurance, yeah. Well, anyway.
Yeah, do
Should I just
something
do
if you want
something?
it.
I have what I
Yeah.
have here. The way this one goes is I used to do this with 2 red ropes, and the problem was that nobody could tell the difference between them, and so now I use a red rope and a white rope. And so what I'm going to do here is tie a knot, and you'll have to focus on this carefully because you'll see afterwards I won't be able to repeat it. So I've tied a knot in the white rope. I'll spin them together. Looks kind of like a candy cane. And what's a good magic word?
Work!
Work! Okay, work! And with that, you'll see the knot jumps from the red rope to the white rope. And this is kind of magical. Right now, I could take the knot off that way, right, or this way, but that's a little boring. So I'm going to make it a little more magical, hopefully, and just untie the knot. And you'll see that it's fused. And become a permanent part of that.
Right.
Yeah. Now I think. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, he's not giving away his secrets out on vain.
I think when I used to work in an office, there was a steady paycheck, even though in my personal experience it was boring and sort of. I felt a little dead in a sense. The work I do, but it was confined to that 8-hour day. When I went home, I was off. The work I do now, just the other day, someone called me at 11:30 at night and said, can I book you for a show? And I had to be all professional. So the work I do now can happen at any time. Whereas before I think it was easier because I think this is probably the case of a lot of us. When you're working for somebody, at least in my job, they're telling you what to do. It's kind of simple. You have to do what they do, what they tell you to do. But in a lot of what we do, no one's telling you what to do. You sort of have to make your own way. And so I find that more difficult, actually, because you have to self-motivate and figure out, what am I going to do? How do I go about doing what I want to be doing? It's not as clear in a way.
Okay, coming back on that one, I would like to do something. And going back to, like, yeah, you have this 9-to-5 job and you work for other people. I came here as an immigrant first from Switzerland, and I did this Swiss cleaning. So I will do something, and I just ask you, you just stand up, and you just stand, if you don't mind, and you just watching me.
Okay.
Just try to watch me. It is dirty.
You missed a spot.
You should be the one standing.
She's pretty good at that, man.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
done this before.
Yeah.
She's a dancer.
And she's good at cleaning.
Okay. Did you enjoy it to watch it?
Yes.
I think he's trying to figure it out.
So the point.
The point that he's making, it didn't feel for that time when it did, doesn't. I remember when I was cleaning in the kitchen.
So it happened to you?
It happened to me. So I was cleaning for this fancy, because I was Swiss cleaning, so I had like lawyers and things like that. So I didn't know that that family, that guy comes earlier home. So I was cleaning in the kitchen. I was like 22 years old, right? Very naive from Switzerland, very shy. My English wasn't that good, so I'm cleaning. And this guy just standing there. And in a moment when I cleaned, I just didn't know what to do. I was uncomfortable, these feelings,
Right,
like,
yeah.
this is just not quite right.
Yes.
You know, I'm doing this job, I get paid for it, just should not say something. But there's something, you know, that was very aware, because the whole day, during the day, we take dance classes, so we have this awareness. And you just keep going. And I just want to come back to that. Maybe think, as you say, body and labor, and it's also the condition of it. Yes, there is this 9-to-5, and we can have this more freedom, but the condition in it, the sensing of it. Just want this throw out, and maybe somebody
So
wanted.
may I ask, what is your relation to the guy who's watching you? Is that the employer?
That was the employer, yeah. And so
you
because it
ever
was,
thought about that?
Oh, of course, she's doing domestic work.
Right.
And that's very, to me, it's power relations, he owned your time, your labor at the time, and he was just watching you, do the work.
Yes.
And that's, to me, that's very disrespectful, not, appreciating your hard work, just watching you. I don't know.
And it's hard when you have to do this every day to make a living for you and your family. And like Chris said, I used to work in the private sector. I worked for Madison Square Garden years ago. And they had all these big layoffs. So I was one of the ones that was laid off. So I said, you know what? My dream is to own my own business. I really wanted to own a food truck. The city's not issuing licenses for food trucks. So they said to me, oh, you're a veteran, you can get a general merchandise license. So that's what I did. And that's how I got involved with the Street Vendor Project. We have 1,400 members.
Excellent.
So I'm there every week. So not only do I work the streets, I work with the Street Vendor Project. And we have 2 bills in front of the City Council right now, Bills 434 and 435, to change the way street vendors operate in New York. And the bill is going to pass. We have more than 30 city council members signed on to that bill. So that's my drill. That's my dream to get it passed.
Yeah, that's great. I'm talking about the power relationship. I'm a writer now, but when I was younger, one of the first jobs I had was working in a factory, putting buckles on belts for $3 an hour at that time. And the factory was trying to switch to piecework, right? So what they would do is they would put us in pairs and they would make us race to see who could put the most buckles on belts within an hour. And then that would become the rate that you were supposed to do in an hour, the highest possible amount of putting buckles on belts. Yeah, it was a real trick. And so I started telling, I was naive, I was 20 years old at the time, and I started telling all the other people working there, don't accept this. It chains you to the work table. I remember actually saying that. And what did they do? They fired me. Right? They gave me 2 weeks severance pay, and they fired me. Now, I was too naive at the time to realize that I probably could have gone to a state labor agency and said, this is retaliation for a kind of union organizing. But I didn't know that at the time. And so sometimes it's great that street vendors can organize, and that's a really terrific thing. But sometimes there can be reprisals against that kind of organizing. Do you find that in domestic workers? Do employers get upset?
Of course, yeah. Because domestic work is unregulated work. It's, in the informal sector. It's in the informal sector. For the longest time, domestic workers are excluded in federal labor laws. And in New York, we were able to, pass the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights 2 years ago, but it's very minimal.
Really?
Yeah. So originally in 2003, domestic workers got together and dreamed of, an ideal Bill of Rights, where we would get a minimum wage of $16 per hour. If the employer does not give us, health insurance. 14 if we have health insurance, where we would get paid sick days, paid vacation, and paid holidays. Notice of termination and severance pay. And we campaigned for this Bill of Rights for 7 years. And what we got is an adjustment of the overtime pay for domestic workers. Because before the bill, live-in domestic workers would only get overtime after 44 hours of work a week. And that would be based on the minimum wage. For example, if I get $10 an hour and I was working live-in, after 44 hours, I don't get $15. I only get a little less than $11 per hour. So that's the trick.
Right.
So this bill corrected that.
But that's the only thing that's correct.
Well, now we're officially regular workers.
Okay.
we're not invisible anymore. We're officially recognized. But what does that mean? Right? So, we're just like other workers that were entitled to minimum wage, overtime pay. But if we look at our wages now, it wasn't much better than 1,000 years ago. When when workers were, came together and fought for the 8 hours workday, so that they could have, a little more time, for their families, for themselves, for friends. Now, even with a minimum at $7.25, you have to work 3 jobs to earn, $22 an hour. And what do you get?
Sure.
Right? What do you get now for $22 an hour? You won't be able to rent, a whole apartment. You will be able to share a room, for example, in an apartment now. Because the living and working conditions for workers have so been, assaulted, I would say, by the system.
Yeah,
and,
the costs rising, the wages not keeping pace.
But the Bill of Rights that the domestic workers came up with did help a little. It's not great. It's not going to be great. But you have to keep pushing, as your organization should be doing.
Yeah.
And are doing that, I know of. Because I've worked with them.
Yeah, the bill gave us 3 paid days after 1 year of working to a single employer. Call it sick days, call it vacation, call it holidays. It's 3 days.
Because I work on Fifth Avenue, And you see a lot, and most of the domestic workers are immigrants, right?
Right.
From all over the world.
And there's a reason for
And
that.
you always see them come down with the strollers. They taking care of their children. They feed them. They clothe them. So I know, because I know a lot of domestic workers. So I know what you go through.
I wanted to make a comment on that. You've made me think of something very interesting with work is how do you value work? To me, what you do, the domestic workers are doing something that's very real. For example, making a place very clean. And to me, that's very important work. To me, a Wall Street banker that works in derivatives and does imaginary things, this doesn't really create any good, yet they're paid much, much more. And for example, when I go into a classroom, I've worked for many years to practice to be able to entertain those kids for 40 minutes. That teacher has to entertain those kids day in and day out every single day. I think they're far underpaid. So the concept that you made me think of with what you were saying is how do we value work? And why does one job get paid this much and this one? To me, work is valued by sort of what it contributes, I think, to society. And often it's not paid
No,
equally.
it's all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I want to go. Do you
Go
mind to interrupt? It's just, I know I will forget it, and I will point to you. You say sick days. Do you give sick days to your workers? They can get sick days.
Sometimes, but as a freelancer, they just don't come in and they just don't get paid for that.
Exactly, you know. And I remember when I mean, right now, I gave literally 3 years ago, I stopped the dance company I've had because I realized I didn't get enough money that I wanted that the dancer have a fairness, right? Too, like, you as an employer want like, okay, I want really fairness. But how about when you cannot give it? Because the money out there and it's not valued, you cannot give that fairness. So my decision was like, I cannot give that fairness because I cannot pay for their sick days, right?
There's another thing about skill that we haven't really talked about.
Yeah, okay,
and, there's kind of an exchange happening because I can't really afford to hire people who are as skilled as I am. So I hire people who are a little bit younger, and I also teach them a lot while they're working for me. So we have, in my office right now, it's kind of an exchange, and it's not a real company. It's a company, but it's not, we haven't gotten to a point where I could actually do sick days, but like today I let, everyone went out to occupy, and last week we went to the museum. So some days I've been trying to like break us from our routine, but I hope that I can get to the point where there's a structure. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Okay, so coming from that, you say you do younger, they're not quite in your
they're not as
experience yet. They have maybe other skills. So how you, I come back to push it real good. And you can both say, like in that sense, I understood it too. There was a quality question and a value question.
Right.
So how you maybe see that, like, I just know for myself that something that was like you want to get someone and you cannot get them. What do you see or where you stand in, or what's your exploration in that?
Well, we're definitely aware of a deficit of labor in relationship to payment of any kind in the dance world and in the art world in general. Many times you make an installation or a sculpture, you buy all of your materials, you put the labor into it, you install it, and you don't make any money back from it, and you don't get paid for your time. It's just something you do on top of a full-time job or 3 other jobs. As a dancer, you might be cleaning a house from 5 in the morning until 8 in the morning. Then you might be dancing from 8 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, and then you might be doing another job.
Yeah, right.
Or you might be trying to dance for someone else who pays you a nominal fee so you can make your own work. So in the festival, one thing is that we've paid everybody that is in it
Something.
And we've made a point to try to do that.
Trying to, yes.
So people feel like what they've put in is worth it.
I think one of the other big things that we concentrate on is the idea of compensation, and not necessarily monetary compensation, but how are we compensated? How is our work compensated outside of that financial structure? And what does it mean to put dedicate yourself to a labor that is not necessarily compensated in that way. I think that's something about what this festival's about how we continue to practice this labor of love, or find ways that we are compensated and find ways to support ourselves in that labor.
Okay, do it. Get the 2 minutes over there, right? Get the 2 minute sign. I just want to say one thing, to kind of closing up, and then you give us something more structured. We gave you in the beginning, the ones who listened, that you can break structure, right? It wasn't easy to break. You maybe wanted to break the structure. Just try to think how much it takes you to break structure. We told them you can do whenever you want to get up. And were you really in that place? Did you listen to your body? Or did you just allow? Was it really, how is your awareness and the honesty? I'm just pulling that out. And with that, let's close it. I think you have something else to share to us.
I just brought one more bit of magic. People here have seen a $2 bill before, right? They're kind of rare. I always ask everyone who's on the $2 bill. Jefferson, right?
Jefferson,
So
yeah.
somewhere in my wallet here, I have a, I don't know, it's a, hang on. Okay, so you might want to, you're welcome to zoom in on this if you want. This is kind of close up. Here's how a magician makes a $2 bill. Now what I have here are two $1 bills, right? Now I'm going to fold them over and down. I'll give it a flick, and it's going to change to a single $2 bill, right? It's a single $2 bill, right? Now one more time, I'll fold it over and down, give it a flick. It's going to change to two $1 bills. I'll do it one last time, okay? I'm going to take two $1 bills, fold them over and down. I'll give it a flick. It's going to change to a 2. I'm trying to learn how to make a $100 bill.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For compensation, you solved the compensation problem.
I just burned your $1. I just burned it. That would be better compensation. Anyway, that's what I had.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for everybody.
Yeah, and thanks to MNN for having us here, and thanks to Mayday for making this all possible. And we should all go to the demonstration and demonstrate.
Okay. Woo!
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
And if you have any more questions about the street vendor projects, www.streetvendor.org.
Your paper.
So street vendors go to street. Yeah, you got the website right there. Thank you so much to the direct action flaneurs, and flaneurs means loafing. I didn't see a lot of loafing. I saw
flaneurs means just going around. Well, let's hold them. They can do it.
All right. You've seen the flaneurs, and all day is the occupation of public access TV. And we'll be going to some of the live action going on right now at Union Square. Just to recap the day, a little bit of the day. So far, we had a history of May Day, which was exciting stuff. We are gonna go over to the live stream right now at Union Square.
.tv to check out my official channel on Ustream, where you can. There's also an embedded chat feature as well. And also, follow me on Twitter at Timcast, Timcasd. Seems like there's a bit of calm time period right now for the march at 5:30 to Wall Street. It went? Yeah, I mean, what do you want me to say? Got TWU over here. Let's check out what they've got going on. Looks like we've got Democracy Now! Over here.
Escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
And I'm Corey Johnson, sitting in for the inimitable Ann Northrup.
Okay, we're not going to try to imitate Ann, but we are going to try to give you the news this week. Thanks for being with us, Corey.
Good to be here.
Nice to see you. A busy news week. We're down to the wire in North Carolina, where the polls open on Tuesday, May 8th. Well, that's election day. People are actually voting now on Amendment 1, which is a constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage and more. And it's really getting ugly, but there are some signs of hope.
The U.S. Senate passes the Violence Against Women's Act with LGBT inclusion, but the Republican-led House is opposed to that.
That's not very nice. Transgender rights have advanced again in New York State, and there was a breakthrough on the rights of transgender people to certain kinds of health insurance coverage.
In Oakland, a tragedy. A transgender outreach worker, Brandy Martell, was shot to death, and we're going to talk about that. Tragic.
In Russia, activists continue to be arrested for violating local laws that ban gay propaganda. That even includes things like wearing rainbow suspenders.
Things are heating up in the Bradley Manning case, the gay soldier who supposedly leaked documents to WikiLeaks, and we'll talk about that.
We're going to look at the question of whether some Mormons are actually afraid of Mitt Romney getting elected president.
Bishop Gene Robinson, who has been a major leader on gay rights nationally and is a bishop in the Episcopal Church, is stepping down, and one of the three candidates trying to succeed him is openly gay as well.
Got a bunch of new plays to review this week, including a new one with Linda Lavin. There's a new Streetcar Named Desire with Blair Underwood as Stanley. A wonderful Midsummer Night's Dream that you also saw at the Classic Stage Company. And John Lithgow playing the powerful, closeted, gay mid-century reporter Joseph Alsop in a play called The Columnist.
And we're going to have a guest in the latter part of the show, Anna Oliveira, who's the president of the New York Women's Foundation and is the former executive director of GMHC, Gay Men's Health Crisis, is going to join us.
Right. Okay. So we start with North Carolina. Again, people are already able to do early voting there, and many people have sent their ballots in on this already. But this is Amendment 1, which would not just ban same-sex marriage, but any kind of domestic league union other than a marriage. So it's very controversial. You know, it's a mess. If it passes, it's going to be terrible. And the good thing is that the NAACP has come out very strongly against this. The NAACP did not even, in this case, the North Carolina chapter, come out for marriage, but they said this amendment is just about getting people. We're opposed to it. It's it's evil. But things are really terrible down there. And to show you about some of the atmosphere there, we have a videotape of this guy in North Carolina who will show you how he felt about people who vote no on Amendment 1.
Scary. Get ready.
All right, I'm Alex Wiles, and this is my buddy Chase Philman. Right now, there's this amendment trying to be passed, Amendment 1, and it's going to state that marriage is between one man and one woman, which is how it ought to be. So somebody decided it'd be a good idea to put this sign near my house. They ought to know not to put stuff like that near my house. All right, we're just going to have a little talk about the sign today. So, that's how we deal with it around here.
So that's what this crazy guy in North Carolina is doing, is shooting a sign. That's very chilling to watch that, because
disturbing.
It's a very, very violent thing, and it's not any kind of a joke.
Yeah, and the politics of North Carolina are, layered and complicated in that the Democratic National Convention is going to be taking place in Charlotte this summer, where Barack Obama is going to be renominated for the Democratic nomination.
You think so?
Yeah, he will be. And, you know, people thought that North Carolina was one of the few states where we didn't really have a chance on these constitutional amendments. We're battling in Minnesota. We are going to the polls potentially in Maryland, in Washington State.
And Maine.
And in Maine. And people thought North Carolina wasn't going to be close.
And freedom to marry didn't make a real big investment there, as they have in some of these other states. And there's a big story about how, what is his name, Chris Hughes, who's a gay guy who's also very involved in the whole marriage movement, also was not giving to this because his attitude is, if you can't win, I ain't giving. But it's actually it looks like it could be close in North Carolina, and therefore we could win.
Chris Hughes was one of the founders of Facebook, and he and his fiancée, Sean Eldridge is a senior advisor at Freedom to Marry, was the political director there for a few years, and they've been deeply invested in the marriage fights nationally. And there's been a piece about, he hasn't given at this point, they've done a tremendous amount nationally across the country for the community. And the most recent polling